Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about technology in practice. How can AI help you run your business better? Run in association with Deltek. I'm Emily Booth. I'm editor of the Architects Journal, and I'm delighted to be joined by a stellar panel today. Cas Esbach, project leader and architect at MVRDV, Alex Solomon, architect and AI lead at Child Graddon Lewis, Ling and Usman, co-founders of design studio HAQUE TAN, and Bret Tushaus, VP of product management at Deltek. Many thanks indeed to Deltek for making this webinar possible today. So what will we be talking about today? AI is at the forefront of lots of practice discussions right now, and understandably, its potential role in architectural design tends to attract the limelight. But AI can also be very useful in helping you with the operational side of your business, such as enhancing decision-making. In the AJ's recent AI in Architecture survey, 52% of respondents cited lack of knowledge or expertise as the greatest barrier to starting to use the technology. So what does AI mean now for you and your business? How can AI support you on an operational basis and free you up for the creative aspects of your practice? These are some of the questions we'll explore during this webinar, within the context that this is new technology moving at pace within a creative sector and that we are all learning about it. During the webinar, I'll invite each of our panelists to do a short presentation, and after that we'll have a discussion about the key issues, and then we'll open it up to Q&As from you, our audience, at the end. So please do use the Q&A function to post your questions for the panel. So let's get started with the presentations. First up, to set the scene, I'd like to invite Bret Tushaus, VP of Product Management at Deltek, to present. Thank you, Bret.
Thanks, Emily. That was a great introduction, and I think it's going to segue nice to some of the things that I just want to talk about from a kicking off perspective. As Emily mentioned, my name's Bret Tushaus, VP of Product Management here at Deltek. Just a little bit of background on me. Prior to coming to Deltek, I'm actually an architect by training, worked in an architecture firm for 15 years in the technology and operations side after practicing architecture for about 5 years. Been with Deltek now with 13 years, and I focus primarily on our solutions for engineering, architecture, and the construction industry. So a lot of sort of experience on the practice side for many years, and now with Deltek for the past 13. And the thing I want to start with is there's no doubt that AI is pervasive these days. I get an article that I read every single day. It's called 365 Days of AI. And there's probably at least 6 to 12 new tools that are identified by that article every day. And this is something I grabbed in an article that I saw recently in terms of the best AI tools of 2024. And like I said, this just further demonstrates the pervasiveness of AI and how big of a deal it is. Now, this covers a lot of different areas, and Emily kicked us off by talking about sort of the operational side and how AI can help on the operational side and running business better, as the webinar title sort of speaks to. And when we talk to our customers and companies and whatnot, we sort of put AI in 3 categories. There's sort of the project deliverables, and that is how you might be able to embed AI and that type of technology in the projects you're actually delivering, maybe smarter buildings, more intelligent buildings, that type of thing. And then there's, of course, the execution design, which is, helping automate the process of design. It could be generative design type things, more on the creative side. But the firm operations one is really the one we wanted to focus on today, because I think there's a huge opportunity here, and Emily, kicked us off great by saying, it helps or sort of enables your organizations to focus more on the creative stuff, which obviously is what your firms are great at and what you want to deliver to the market, by making you more efficient, more effective, and whatnot, using things like AI on the operational side of the business. Now, the interesting thing about this is every time Deltek talks to customers and companies and whatnot about it is, the hype around it has been significant for the past, 12, 18 months or so. And there's sort of this challenge of sort of navigating the reality versus the hype. And one of the things we always get asked about is, okay, how can I really apply AI technology in my office? And we just finished our 5th industry study called Deltek Clarity. And one of the things that we focused on, not surprising, was the topic of AI. And we asked them questions on, how are firms using AI? And if you think about this through that operational lens that I just talked about, there's some things going out there. Emily talked about making decisions and providing insight and whatnot into your firms. That's obviously a big part of this. Automation is certainly a use of AI. Predicting project outcomes, the whole idea of identifying a problem before it, really becomes a problem for you or your customers. And then, things even as sort of operational focus from anomaly detection on the financial side of your business. Those are things that firms are starting to use AI for, and that's some of the feedback we're getting, or we got through this industry study. And then if you look at the more sort of generative AI things like data analysis and exploration, and even the more obvious things that we hear a lot about, creating proposals or help creating proposals and other marketing content. So we know that firms are actually applying the technology and getting benefit from it. And what I just wanted to finish with before we turn it over to some of the other panelists are some specific examples that we're seeing out there in the market. And these 5 certainly don't cover everything, but I think they cover some big things that I almost like to sort of coin as low-hanging fruit. These are easy things for your firms to take advantage of, to, again, getting back to Emily's point, allow your people to focus more on the creative side, focus more on servicing your clients and those types of things. Now, as we talk about each of these, predictive analytics, the great thing about the tools that you use to run your businesses, some of them may be Deltek solutions, some of them may not. Regardless, there is a massive amount of data within those solutions that you can use to help leverage, predicting project performance, identifying what makes a good, profitable project, and those types of things. Call this algorithmic intelligence, if you will. A great way to provide insight into your business, your project performance, and all of things, again, like I said before, to help course correct on a problem that might be sort of creeping up on one of your projects. The next one is in-office efficiency, and there are all kinds of tools out there now. There's a tool called Lindy that I use regularly that uses generative AI to sort of help me through certain tasks and finding information. And even something as simple as Microsoft Copilot. We use that at Deltek now, and it's amazing some of the stuff you can do it. The video that you're seeing here is a meeting inside of Teams. And while I'm in that meeting with Copilot, I can ask questions on what's happened in that meeting. Who just asked this question? What topic was just discussed? Give me a recap of the meeting. So this is a simple one that many of you might be familiar with, but the ability for this to add efficiency and effectiveness is real, and we're seeing it inside of Deltek. And again, it's one of those low-hanging fruits in your productivity software that is definitely something to check out when you talk about sort of firm operations and how you can glean some value from that. Task automation is another very popular one. RPA technology and bots and whatnot. This technology is more accessible than it's ever been. Years ago, you needed a little bit more technical know-how and whatnot to do this, but the idea of RPA and automating tasks, whether it be data entry or those types of things, like I said, that technology is more accessible than ever. And of course, AI assistants and agents, these are getting all the hype these days as well. I think AI agents are sort of the next frontier that we're going to see, specifically in the context of generative AI. Deltek is in the process of releasing a digital assistant inside one of our products called Vantage Point that actually allows you to have a conversation with your Vantage Point data, ask questions about projects, ask questions about some issues that you might want to be concerned about, those types of things. And this just saves people time. It sort of eliminates the need for one of your people to have to go run a report, know where to find this information, know there's an issue with a project, all of those types of things. So again, low-hanging fruit item that you can leverage AI to increase some value within your organization. And then the last one is one of my favorites. And again, this is one that's getting all the hype these days. It's content generation, it's content summarization. It's using things like ChatGPT and Claude and whatnot. But one of the great examples that I always share with architecture and engineering firms is I've got a 150-page RFP, and I want to very quickly get some information from that. I can ask them questions about that RFP. Tell me what are the key things that I need to include in my proposal. Tell me, are there any special terms and conditions that I need to be aware of in relation to this RFP? And I can get that information very, very quickly, again, from this 150-page RFP, much quicker than I would, having to necessarily read every single page. Now, obviously, you still need to validate some of that and use it responsibly, but it does give you sort of a leg up from an efficiency perspective in terms of understanding what's in that very large document. So again, these are just 5 examples that we're seeing firms use that are sort of that low-hanging fruit that can create some great value, efficiencies, and effectiveness, and are pretty easy to adopt within your organization around that firm operations component. And again, we're seeing a lot of great value from these within our customers. So Emily, that's our kickoff. I think we're going to turn it over to Cas next. So
yeah, thank you so much, Bret. Really insightful, really helpful, and thank you, Cas. Over to you.
Yeah, perfect. I feel like Bret, that was really inspiring to see, and I don't think I have too much to add actually, because you hit every topic basically. But it's very cool, and just a general thank you for inviting me to speak here. I think it's always really interesting to share the stage with so many smart people. I think that's also key to the AI discussion right now, is that it is part of this global discussion that we're all doing together and slowly growing our own understanding by discussing it in this way. Let me just take you guys through a few slides here, because I am Cas Esbach. I'm a project leader and architect at MVRDV, and MVRDV is founded by Winnie Maas, Jacob van Rijs, and Nathalie de Vries, MVRDV. And we've got 300 people with 35 nationalities all over the world. And within the firm, I'm a project leader. So that means that I'm in between all the people. And in like the worst way to explain it, I feel like the punching bag of the office, where advisors, the team, the clients, the partners are all punching on me. And my job is to kind of push it all together and kind of deliver something within budget and time that adheres to our ambitions. And that's of course a bit sad to say it that way, but the great thing is we work on these really amazing projects, and we do that by always pushing ourselves to the next level. So we really push to go beyond the standard answer to the questions, and it's also about finding the right question to pose, like we did here for the Valley, where we tried to challenge our design thinking through trying to create identity for every person within this housing complex. Or like here, what we did for Prague, when we challenged ourselves to both respect the history, the past, but also integrate green throughout the whole building. And then through AI dreaming, we were able to come up with this beautiful idea that we had this old gridded framework, which represented an old design for the area, behind which we created fully sustainable and future-proof buildings. Or how can we be more contextual, like on this building, where we started with the max in Romania, and Yash, this is where we started with the maximum envelope possible and started cutting away to ensure that every line of sight to every historical building is kept and nothing is obstructed and there's no sunlight blocked at any point. So completely designed through reduction. Or how can we be more human? So where we in Shenzhen, where we designed this design language of terraces, which creates both shading and help against the rain, which is the other half of the year. So the half of the year it's crazy sunny, other half of the year it's crazy rainy. So we had to use this design language to both create these iconic living room style spaces, but also the places where you take your children to hang out and to sit back and relax. And we do this through being a research-based office. Here you see our first meter of research that we did. And it means that all of our designs are based in research and research-driven design. And that helps us keep our designs ambitious and consistently pushing the boundaries. And we do that also by consistently developing our approach to design. And that's why AI now recently has become such a hot topic, but also something that we've really fallen in love with as a way to push our design technique forward. And because AI, as Bret said, is one of the hot topics right now, where you have a lot of haters and lovers in the world. Some people can't get enough of it, and others seem to believe it's the downfall of the world. Here, Elon Musk, his quote is covered, but I think he says something like, "We're all gonna lose our jobs" or something. But the truth is somewhere in the middle. We can choose to embrace or to fear it, but the truth and the reality is somewhere in the middle, because AI is just a tool to enhance your process and to integrate and to push yourself further. but it's a tool that's clearly in search still for the right job. And we have a few reflections on the jobs, which kind of Bret's already told them all in a way, but on design input, the inherent nature that of AIs to help hallucinate and dream outside of the box by merging data sets and models together, or here where we are able to generate beautiful imagery using this age-old technique of model building, or design output, reducing time spent on iterative tasks like material tests. Thousands of material tests, which usually take weeks, now can be done in 15 minutes, or beautiful finalized renders where sometimes children seem to be somewhere in between reality and not existing. But it's in a way, it helps us also communicate our designs. And then on the side of document management and regulatory compliance, it's extremely powerful. We're building these regulation GPTs, each one with all of the documents of the Dutch government loaded in, for example, here, so that people who don't speak Dutch can still search and interact with them without having to walk to a Dutch person or a Chinese person, to get the knowledge that is like hidden away within, if you see it on the left, like 25 complicated documents, and you can interact with it like a human being, really, turning up your design process to 11 and allowing you not to waste any time in these boring tasks, I would say. It also allows you to gain easy access to knowledge, which usually is hidden behind years and years of training, like Python scripting, allowing people like me who don't know how to script in Python still generate certain scripts and gather that knowledge and integrate it into our design process. And it's clear that as AI is growing and grabbing onto certain things and changing, the world is going to change and the whole design process is going to change, but we have to embrace that change. And the key is to be aware of also the limitations of the AI and the machine learning tools, which are so prevalent today, and choose to be data literate through these discussions as we're having today. Because even though images like this are like beautiful, exciting, and you want to dive in and generate 1,000 cool pictures and send them to your clients, this is not what architecture or design is about. Actually, the design world is about this: meeting people, going to site, connecting and sketching and coming and sitting together. And I think that is exactly what we're talking about today. The AI is a tool that'll enhance your design process so that you can do the thing that we love to do as design buildings and not get stuck and bogged down in all these boring, repetitive data analytical tasks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cas. Really insightful, really illuminating. Next up, I'd like to invite Alex Solomon from Child Graddon Lewis to present. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you for having me here. I'm an architect and a BIM manager with Child Graddon Lewis, who is a multi-award winning architectural and design practice with 50 members of staff based by Exmoor Market. And for over 30 years, we've specialized in urban regeneration and residential-led development, balancing new housing with benefits for existing residents. We as a practice, we started venturing into the realm of AI 2 years ago, initially experimenting with tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, and ChatGPT, much like others in our field. I know bigger practices such as MVRDV are developing their own tools, and they try to understand their weaknesses and try to learn how to go around them. But since we're a smaller office in size, our focus was on identifying AI tools that are comprehensive, user-friendly, and straightforward to manage and implement. So we're looking for software that can be integrated within our practice design culture and within our workflows without causing any disruption. So this diagram presents a 5-stage approach for the implementation of AI tools within our practice, and each phase builds upon the previous one to ensure a thorough and effective adoption. And security was an important factor for us on how we choose the tools we want to use, as there are many apps out there that are using data we feed it in ways we don't want it to. And because of that, we need to find a way to safeguard ourselves, but also our clients. As an industry, we're still trying to figure out how AI will fit within our way of working. And the start of any great building starts with the creative idea that needs to be developed from the very beginning. And our goal isn't to streamline the architectural profession, but to find and recognize areas of potential error and use software tools to reduce them. These are just some of the tools that I've tested, and they're split into 3 big categories. And while many of them promise the moon, they're not really delivering on what they promise, or they don't have a clear roadmap of development. And because of this, we found the most reliable all-in-one apps currently on the market are these ones. So I'll be taking you through a case study, a theoretical site, and I'll show you how we've implemented the tools. So the first tool works in conjunction to ViewCity, and you can basically generate multiple options for a site based on its specific constraints. You can extract all of the information from ViewCity to SiteSolve and set the boundary lines within your constraints from unit mix customization, set area required for each unit, block heights, wall thicknesses, plant allocation, and many more. And once you've defined the constraints, you can then generate multiple options for the site and further customize the option you choose for a better output. It basically allows you to generate a variety of design solutions based on a preferred criteria and evaluate them based on their performance, and then apply the insights to further optimize your design. In order to speed up the initial stage of the design process and evaluate multiple feasibility options, we use software which is called Planary, which is designed to create building variations from filled regions in Revit and can produce real-time statistics and 3D massing in Revit at a fraction at a time it would normally take. The next tool is called Finch 3D. So if you already have a massing in Revit, this tool can help you to create floor plates and unit types based on the preferred unit mix, CO2 efficiency, daylight and sunlight, and it also allows you to create custom corridors and stairwells, aligning it with building regulations in mind for a more tailored approach. And if you're happy with the design, you can then import it back to Revit and further customize it. And it's worth mentioning, whenever you're importing this information back to Revit, it picks up Revit native family, so it's quite easy to adjust. Going into more detail on individual apartments, this plugin helps with flat layouts. And you can basically identify the point of entry into a flat, set the number of desired rooms, and it can produce several layouts to choose from. And it basically aims to streamline and optimize the time required for the team to test and choose the right layout. As an additional feature, as shown in the middle row, it also allows you to explore whether a larger apartment is feasible within the same space. And if you're still not happy with the proposed layouts the app generates, you can utilize your own unit types library. I remember someone said that digital artists are lazy. It was probably meant to be provocative, but I understand why some might think that. Digital tools nowadays allow us to create powerful shortcuts that make it so you as an artist need to do less in order to get a finished piece. And it's quite easy to get blinded by all of this and forget why you're an artist in the first place. And because of this is the reason that I personally like using Chrome AI, because it still allows you the opportunity of hand sketching and express as much as you want, and use Chrome AI as a tool to further develop your options, test materiality, and create more variation in your work. And by doing this, it won't take your choices as an artist, and it won't diminish your voice, and ultimately your idea will be key. As final words, in this phase of our journey, I'd like to end the presentation on a few notes. One, I personally think it's crucial to remember that all of these tools are just tools at the end, highly sophisticated tools, but tools nonetheless. Despite their potential, their effectiveness depends on the architect's ability to leverage these tools wisely. Two, I think it's crucial to use AI thoughtfully within our profession to ensure that our designs retain its essence and don't simply become a result of improved efficiency. While it's tempting to view AI as a solution to many of our challenges in architectural design, it's essential to remember that just because something is efficient, that doesn't make it necessarily better. And a balanced approach is always the key, and understanding its limitation. And three, we must consider the impact that AI will have on our education. The upcoming generation of architects will enter a profession where AI tools might be as common as CAD is for us today. And we need to ensure that architects will be equipped with critical thinking skills necessary to evaluate, but also challenge AI-generated design. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex, for that really helpful take. Great examples there. Thank you so much. I'm delighted now to ask Ling Tan and Usman from HAQUE TAN to present. Thank you, Ling and Usman.
Hi, thanks for having us, and it's great to hear from the others. Hopefully it sets up well what we are going to talk about now. So we are Ling and Usman. We are founders of HAQUE TAN. We are a design studio that works at the intersection of architecture, art, and technology. We are both trained as architect and designer, as well as creative technologies. For us, technology is increasingly governing the way we relate to each other and our spaces, our buildings, our neighborhoods, our cities. If we, as part of the architectural industry, are not careful, the design of our public spaces, buildings, and cities will be determined by technology companies, quite likely Silicon Valley, rather than architects who actually understand materiality and the experience of, say, space, like what the other speakers were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so at HAQUE TAN, we are basically trying to take a proactive approach to technology, deeply understanding it by actually building technology ourselves and embedding technology in architectural projects, actually in the built environment. So not just using technology as a tool, but activating space itself. We're both designers as well as software developers. We've designed and built interactive architecture. We've worked on genetic algorithms, which is a kind of early machine learning. We've created IoT infrastructure. We've developed machine learning algorithms, and we've even built AI platforms ourselves and spun out tech startups. And we do all of this really to chart new territory for architecture and the experience of space and really the creation of the built environment. So for us, this means thinking about architecture as a blend of both physical and digital. We'll get to AI in a moment, but for now, the thing we want to kind of get across is that there is an opportunity to embed technology in the built environment itself, not just as an app, not just as a kind of an add-on or as a novelty, but actually as integral to the way that people encounter a space, how they experience it, what they think of it, and also how they remember it.
If you can harness what we call the eccentricity of technology, those aspects that enable people to have superpowers or to do things they never imagined, this is how you create unforgettable architecture. And this is how you differentiate, how you create something with a distinctive physical and digital identity. When it comes to AI, much of the discussion, understandably, centers on how it can help in optimizing, improving efficiency and productivity. When you hear about artificial intelligence, we like to replace it with the phrase applied statistics, applied at scale. So it demystifies what's actually going on in the systems itself. Operating on very sophisticated statistical processes. AI can help support fairly mundane tasks like writing documents or emails, perhaps assisting in managing the delivering process, or more deeply in contributing to CAD work, summarizing documents, creating renderings. Having worked with a number of tools ourselves, and more importantly, understanding how these tools are typically created, because we have built some ourselves, we know that there is a no cure-all. They often need a fair chunk of work to get to perform adequately, and pretty much always require knowledgeable oversight. They cannot replace expertise, though they can mimic it.
And, just to give an example, I'm sure almost everyone has tried out ChatGPT. It's great at creating meaningful text, but you'll notice that it's also the case that text that is created by ChatGPT is getting increasingly easy to identify. You know it when you read it. And this is kind of the case with a lot of the kind of AI tools. People who know a subject area very well will actually find it even easier to identify text that's been created with AI. And the same is the case for most generative AI image tools. They have a distinctive look to them. And there's an old adage that you're probably familiar with, that you could tell how a building was designed, whether it was AutoCAD or MicroStation, or whether you used Rhino versus SketchUp. And the same is becoming apparent with generative AI tools, the difference between Midjourney and DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and whatnot. So as you start to use these tools, just be aware that those who are using them a lot will be aware of the tools that you're using if you're not really bringing your own distinctive identity to it. We believe that that it's definitely possible to do idiosyncratic work with it, but you've got to be thinking about that.
So in our own experience, we haven't actually found tools that actually, in the medium term at least, save time. With investment in setting up training and management, they may save time in the longer term, but just like any technological tools, they don't solve all problems and may generate new ones, which I'm sure a lot of people who are using, for example, ChatGPT have faced that, which isn't to say don't use them, but rather to say that one must approach AI with specific strategic intent in order to get the most out of it. We believe that AI has great tools for architects, but we are cautious about it being the key decision maker or dictator in the production process.
So we're kind of primarily fascinated by the ways that AI can support new forms of creativity. And it's really in that regard that it contributes to our operations as a business. We recently created the new entrance for Great Ormond Street Hospital. And there, over a period of 2 years, we worked with children at the hospital, some of them long-term patients, with a wide range of ages, interests, and medical needs. And what we did was, using generative AI, we explored with them the concept of life bursting out of the hospital. And they used AI tools to visualize basically their wildest imaginations of the kind of plant or fungus or life form they'd like to see escaping from inside and populating the world. And they came up with things like a Pomeranian plant, Sonic the Hedgehog flowers, golden moss, and then they use generative AI to create these forms and blend them together in this kind of wild explosion of their imaginations that seeps from inside the building, out the entrance, across the facade and pavement, and even into the street.
So we blended these visions of life with tangible physical plants, the kind that need air and water to survive, trying to seamlessly transition between the digital and the physical. So even the digital version responds to the weather and changes with the seasons as well. What this shows us was a way to use AI as a creative tool embedded into the fabric of the built environment, one that explicitly depended on the co-creation and imagination of the children. This was a way of using AI that we would not have understood deeply without having tested on a real-world project like this. So for us, if the rise of AI heralds anything useful, it's that it might change our perspective on creativity, and even better, our perspective on intelligence. Where AI is most exciting for us in HAQUE TAN is in its potential to support and enhance co-creation, which is a key part of our design process. Co-creation between people and also co-creation between people and machines. It may even help reframe what human intelligence is in the context of many other possible intelligence.
Because right now we're working on combining human, natural, and artificial intelligence to create a sort of triangle of intelligences. One of the projects we're doing, we're using AI basically to give voices to natural organisms so that people can have conversations with them as we encounter them in public space. We're trying to use AI to build and not just to design, if that makes sense. So for us, AI is most exciting where it helps us develop these new ways of working together productively and constructively, creating these experiences that are unique, impactful, and memorable. At HAQUE TAN, this means basically prototyping, testing, building constantly with different kinds of AI platforms and tools in the real world and trying to use it productively in our team's creative process as a building material.
If you're interested to find out more about this, we have actually recently wrote an article for AJ about our approach to AI, specifically for the Great Ormond Street Hospital project. And you can find it directly at the short URL below bit.ly/HAQUETAN.ai. Thank you so much for
HAQUETAN-AI.
-AI, yes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation, and congratulations on that lovely project as well at Great Ormond Street Hospital. Thank you so much to you all for those presentations. We're now going to have a conversation just between the panel, chaired panel discussion. Just a reminder to you, our audience, please do post your questions using the Q&A function on the screen as you wish. So just picking up on some of these great points just made. If I could come to you, back to you immediately, Ling and Usman, there's such a interesting thought there in terms of almost this seamless transition between AI and the real world, this new approach to AI, I suppose, and what really excites you about it. How do you find that the profession feels like it's getting the balance right at the moment? Obviously, this is very early days, but in terms of using AI to support those business operations, but also to enhance creativity, how are you seeing that as a team?
Shall I run with this? So I think we mentioned right at the beginning that part of the reason that we are trying to work directly with these tools and in some cases create them ourselves is we're actually a bit worried that the architecture profession is not really grabbing the technological opportunities enough. And to a certain extent, it's technology companies that are starting to define the way that we work, the way that our buildings and spaces are created, because they are creating the tools, and not necessarily those whose key expertise is understanding the built world, the materiality of the world, the experience of space, and things like that. So I think that, you know, it's obviously a balance, but and architecture has always kind of had this relationship to technology where sometimes it's lagging behind, sometimes it's drawing from other industries. But in the case of AI, I think we sort of have to catch up, because otherwise, I think we're going to see the same kind of phenomena happening as we've seen in vehicles, where you know how now Google and Apple define the entertainment system in a car because they did it so well. The car designers and manufacturers themselves don't own that experience anymore. And to put it bluntly, I think if architects don't catch up and actually start to really work with these tools and use them to define experience, it will be technology companies that start to own that part of the experience of space. That's our take on it.
Thank you so much, and it's fascinating to hear as well that you actually have experience of building these kind of tools. So it's like that's kind of the real insight that you bring here. So we appreciate that very much. Coming back to you now, Alex, if I may, you talked really fluently about the fact that these are tools, that the AI tools, that they're myriad, many tools available, and it's important to use them wisely and thoughtfully, also with balance and being mindful of efficiency. You know, you just because you can doesn't mean you should, sort of thing. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how you use tools to really help with efficiency, but then where do you draw that line? Where do you find yourself thinking, okay, I want to move beyond this now, and this is where the critical thinking comes in?
So I think our profession evolves, and we find ourselves shifting from purely being designers to acting as mediators to what AI can produce. And I think we need to be careful on the future of all of these tools and how we let them to utilize the data and the sets that we usually offer them. After all, it's not about machines replacing humans. It's about machines empowering humans to achieve more significant, more impactful, and more innovative design in construction. And I think the overall key is that we need to collaborate and use architects to leverage the strength of AI to overcome human weakness. And in return, AI benefit from the nuances of human creativity and experience. But it's going to be some time for us to set up some boundary rules in order to understand how AI can help us and understand its limitations.
Thank you so much, Alex. And coming to you now, Cas, if I may. It was really interesting when we were talking about the importance that data literacy kind of held when we were doing a chat before the webinar as well. You flagged that as being a real risk, and I just wonder if you've got any tips, practical tips for architects trying to get to grips more with data literacy, what this means with regard to AI, and perhaps what it means to helping to run your practice.
Yeah, I think it builds really on what Usman, Ling, and Alex also said. We need to, as architects, step up. Grab onto these developments, and find ourselves to be in charge of it, and not have ourselves be led by these large technology companies. I think that's exactly the right thing, and I think that's what data literacy is all about, in a way that you can only control the output of these tools if you understand how they work. I think that was great what you said, Ling, about this. I don't know exactly what it is, but the AI tools, AI is the wrong word, right? We're using it, it's kind of catchy and it works, and everybody thinks like, oh, it's some human there I'm talking to, or something with human type intelligence, but actually it's just a statistical model trained on so much data that it can kind of emulate what we're doing as humans, but it's not more than that. So I think that thinking moment, once you understand that, I think that's what I mean with data literacy, is that you can grab, then you start to think, oh wait, so it's just guessing what I think, what I wanted to say. So then you start to think, okay, if it's just guessing, I shouldn't ask ChatGPT to help me. I should just tell it, because if you ask it, it can also say no, because it's a statistical probability for it to say no to you, actually. So it's just those types of things that that's why I preach for data literacy. Is just understand that link, that it's not artificial intelligence, it's not that hype thing, it's something else. And but enjoy it when it's here. It's so much fun. It's and grab it onto it, watch spend one weekend watching this stuff, and you'll really start to understand how it really works. And then you can find a way for you to integrate it in your design process for yourself, because I think it's very personal. I think there's a lot of fear about it replacing parts of the design process. I don't have that fear at all. I just see that it'll allow lazy designers to stay lazy, and they were already lazy before AI, and they will still be lazy after it. Just like with Revit, it's really easy to make a building with Revit. The blocks are there, everything's there. It's just like when the calculator came, it maybe people said, yeah, now you're lazy, or it's going to make math so much easier, but actually it just elevates what you can do as a designer or a mathematician. So I think it's just a tool, and we should see it that way.
Thank you so much, Cas. Coming to you now, Bret. In terms of your presentation, it was so useful with just setting out very clearly where you're seeing practices using these sorts of AI tools to help them run their business more efficiently and better. And just really talking to that useful piece, I wonder if in the realm of, you pointed out data analysis, predictive analytics. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that, where you're seeing opportunities for practices. Is that in terms of really understanding cost? You talked about sort of heading off problems before they became problems. I wonder if you could just speak a little bit more about that with regard to data analysis and predictive analytics.
Yes, absolutely. I think, when you look in the context of what Deltek brings to the table from a solution perspective, this is what we're all about. And even the previous comments around, data literacy and things like that, the data is what's driving all of this. And I love the sort of rephrasing artificial intelligence to applied statistics, because that applies here as well. But I think the things that we're seeing the most of, it comes to a few things. One is just setting up project plans and resources and things like that. The ability to use analytics, some things as simple as, estimate to complete, and having better line of sight into where things are going ahead of time is a very sort of maybe call it weak application of AI, but it's extremely powerful and sort of, like I said, giving that predictive line of sight that organizations may not know that they have the ability to do that with the data they have in place. So I think that would be sort of the first thing I would point out. The other thing I would point out is there are a lot of things that you can glean from a systems like Deltek Create or similar ERP solutions that are indicators as to where a project is heading. It can be something as obvious as effective multiplier and some of the more sort of financial metrics, but there are other things that you can glean from the activity that you're having with the customer. Has a customer gone silent? Is a customer late to pay? Is there a lot of unbilled work on a project? All of those things are, standing by themselves, they're probably somewhat benign, but when you take that all together and sort of look at those as big indicators as to where this project is headed, sort of a project 360 or a project health score situation, they can tell you a lot about what's going on, in this case with a specific project or as an organization as a whole. So I think there's all these sort of, like I said, standalone, the metrics are somewhat, they're important, but they're not as powerful as they are collectively. And that is another way, getting back to the comment about applied statistics, that's another way to leveraging applied statistics to really see where things are going. So the two areas we see it the most is around project planning and resourcing, and then sort of the more general metrics that can be indicators of project health, client satisfaction, those types of things.
Thank you so much, Bret, and for really making that connection between all these things. With little bits of data might not give a full picture, but as a whole, they give you a real indication of how your practice might be faring. I find that very interesting. The whole gives a real sense of perhaps the health of the practice. So if we want to open this up a little bit more into questions coming in from our audience, there are loads of great questions here. We will endeavour to get through some of them. Here, I think one from someone who runs a small architectural studio. Okay, so I suppose this is more of a kind of top tip question. How do you use AI for office admin and processes? I suppose what is a key way that a small practice might jump into this and use it to support perhaps one aspect of business function? I don't know if I could come back to you on that, Bret.
Yeah, I can maybe start. I mean, I think of it from an operational perspective.
Yeah.
There might be some ways on the more design and creative side of things, but I think if I think about it for the operational perspective, I mentioned Microsoft Copilot, and that's just one of the tools that are out there that are more agent-based. Lindy is another one. Julius is a great tool. There are a number of these sort of agent-based AI tools that can sort of act as an assistant, as a digital companion, if you will, that can help a small firm from an operational perspective just gain efficiency and be able to do things a little bit more at scale for a small firm. So it's those types of things that I would focus on. Like I said, Microsoft Copilot and other agent-based Gen AI tools are probably the place to start when it comes to trying to find how, from an admin perspective, a tool like that could help you. Now, I could also mention things like Claude and ChatGPT, and those are great tools as well. But the great thing about something like Microsoft Copilot or Lindy or things like that is that it doesn't require you to necessarily understand as much about prompt writing and things like that. It sort of embeds itself in the tools that you use every day. And that's a great way to, like I said, gain that efficiency and effectiveness through some of these Gen AI tools.
Thanks so much, Bret. And Alex, I know your practice is considerably larger, but just in terms of your working knowledge of this, your expertise, is there something that you think, okay, a small practice, if you're going to do one thing with AI to support processes, office admin, project management, what might that be?
Aside to the examples that Bret gave, I personally wouldn't recommend something at this moment in time. And it's more because of the security issues that I've highlighted within my presentation. I think at the moment, a lot of these apps are requesting a lot of information, access to a lot of information that we shouldn't offer them. And because of that, I personally think we need to be careful on what apps we should access or have installed on our computers. So I think the best one by far would be Copilot, because it works in direct connection to Microsoft Office. So yeah.
Good stuff, thank you. So moving on to some other questions here. I think this is a really good one that speaks to just the kind of wider context, really. What do you think is the most important thing to teach new architect students in the days of AI? What is the most important thing at the moment? I suppose, Cas, if I could come to you on that one.
Yeah, no problem. So my students, at least, I tell them that it's, it's not it's a means to an end. It's not the goal to use AI, actually. So it's fun to use it and definitely do it, but I think if you integrate it too early in your design process or in your learning steps, maybe you're gonna stunt yourself. But definitely grab onto it. Do one of your projects and try to integrate it in one of them. But it's just like when I was in university, we did one for Revit, one with Rhino, then tried Grasshopper. Just pick and feel your way through it. And yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Thank you, Cas. Ling, coming to you and Usman, I don't know whether you can speak to that point. What's the one thing that architect students should be learning now, or being taught in these days of AI?
I think adding on to what Cas said, I think I totally agree on that. And I think one thing that I feel like as architecture students, I myself have learned a lot in school is just understanding the socio-political dimension in architecture. And that if you are applying AI to design, we should really understand how it came about, how it's created, who is creating this, and then thinking about how you implement those tools into the design. I think that's very important.
I think there's also, and I think this maybe applies wider as well to anyone who's starting to use AI, not just in education, but there is a sort of a philosophical shift that one has to make when using these tools, which is that, when you write a document in something like Word, you have a spell check that tells you when you've made a mistake, or you have a grammatical thing that tells you when you've made a mistake. AI works differently. AI will create the text for you, and you will spend more time spell checking it and correcting it and tweaking it yourself, which isn't to say, which is not to make fun of it. It's just to say it's a different process. You bring your expertise to that collaboration with these tools, and it can be a bit mundane, in the sense that you're now kind of choosing from 17 different plans that it's offered for you. But as long as you go into it with that philosophical approach, that the creativity is coming from your expertise combined with the tool, I think you can be a lot more productive. We found the case, even like, because as I mentioned, we both code, we write software. We started out with the AI helping write the software. We ended up, it would write the software and we would debug it for the AI. And that's how you get more productive. That's how you get more creative, because you're effectively nudging it towards what you actually need and what you kind of, with all your experience in education, actually know is the way to go.
Thank you so much. There's a question here about clients. Where do clients fit in with all of this, with AI and it supporting your business and it helping create great buildings? What's the client's role here, and how can they benefit? Alex, I wonder if I could speak to you on this one.
I think at the end of the day, the clients will have better output from us using AI to produce more options for the project in a more effective way. So we can use our time to produce multiple options depending on what kind of output we need to produce. Of course, we'll be able to explore a wide range of design options in a shorter amount of time. I think that's the most important thing. The client will have more options they'll be having on their desk by the end of the day. So I think that's the most important thing.
And Bret, I don't know whether you've seen this or in your experience working with many practices and studios and engineering firms, what clients are demanding, how these tools can help practices interact and support clients?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because you sort of phrased it the first time, what's the client's role in this? And I guess from my experience so far, I don't know if the client has as explicit of a role at this point, but I think Alex sort of got to this as well, and you sort of, Emily, shared this in your kickoff too, is that the client's ultimately the beneficiary of this. And to Alex's point, you can iterate more, you can get more design ideas, that type of thing in front of a client. But the other thing I would say, and I think we've started to see this or hear this from our customers as well, is ultimately, I think the client's going to get more attention as a result of some of this stuff. And that's a good thing, right? Because happy clients are return clients, are loyal clients, that type of thing. So I think probably the biggest thing we're seeing so far, now obviously this could evolve, but the biggest thing we're seeing so far is there's an opportunity for clients to get more attention and be more engaged with the firms they're working with, because those people in those firms are spending less time on some of that mundane, non-value adding stuff and able to focus more on the value adding things.
Thanks so much for that one, Bret. There's a question here, quite an interesting one, I think, about the concerns about privacy in terms of data. And I know that Alex, you've spoken about this a little bit. What do we have to do thinking about the privacy of data with the current generation of AI apps and assistants and things like that? I don't know, Cas, whether you'd like to talk a little bit about that. Do you think about data privacy with these things? Do you have to be mindful of that?
We have discussions on it, but we run most of these tools on our own servers and try to keep it all in-house because of this. Also, the copyright is more our biggest issue, actually, what we're concerned about. So running things on our own models and avoiding using somebody else's copyrighted stuff in our generative tools is key for us to be able to use them to earn money off of them. So yeah.
Completely, and interesting that you are working on your own in-house tools, which we hear more about as well. I don't know whether, Usman, you want to talk about that at all, being mindful about privacy and data when you're using some of these tools?
I think in our company, we have always been building our own system itself. So kind of data privacy is a key concern for us. And that's why we try to tend to, if possible, use systems that we integrate with the data that we have.
But yeah, definitely something key to think about.
And Emily, maybe if I just add something there.
Come in, Bret, please do.
Yeah, one of the things that we're looking at, and Alex sort of alluded to this as well, is there's a new responsibility, I think, as you start to explore these tools, because the sort of terms and conditions and how these tools sort of deal with data privacy are all over the map. And one of the great things, and Alex pointed this out, is Microsoft Copilot. If you're an Office 365 customer, the great thing about Microsoft Copilot is all of that interaction with the tool stays within your domain, if you will. And not all tools are that way. And in some cases, if you're not a paid subscriber of that tool, they're using that data to train. They're using that data to learn what's going on. If you're a paid subscriber, they are keeping it more private. So there's a new responsibility, for better or worse, on us as the consumers of these tools that I don't think we were was as sensitive prior, that we need to look at, okay, I'm going to use this tool. How does it deal with my data that I'm sending to it? Because like I said, it's all over the map with these various tools, and you need to, look at that more closely.
Thank you so much. So I'm very conscious of the time. We just have a few more minutes now today. But I wonder if I could just go around the panel and just say if there's one area that you think architects should be skilling up in and getting to grips with in AI, this is the one. Alex, I wonder if I could start with you.
As a top tip, I would personally recommend to all architects to try to experiment. Don't be afraid. When I first started implementing some of the tools in the practice, I've been getting a lot of feedback, people not getting whatever they wanted to achieve from the beginning, but by trying to get as much as possible from AI tools from today, because we don't need to forget that we're only at the beginning. It still can't produce whatever we wanted to, but try to make the best out of it and advance as we go.
Thank you so much. And Ling and Usman, there's one thing that architects could skill up on. What would you say right now with regard to AI that should be?
I think adding on to what Alex was saying, I think experimenting, but I think for us, what really, I think we would like to give the tips to other architects is really just go a bit wild with how you can use AI, not just as tools for, you know, mundane activities, well, like administrative work, but really thinking about how you can use it in the creative way. And I think it's where the magic comes in.
The investment pays off to spend some time trying different things and understanding that it's a new mode of operation. So it's not skilling up in one thing, it's just really jumping headfirst into it.
Thank you so much. And Cas, what would you say the one thing to do for practices? Oh, is he there? Oh, okay. Bret, to you.
Yeah, the only thing I think I would say is, you know, there was talk, Cas brought this up earlier, the quote from Elon Musk, and, you know, the whole idea of AI replacing people and jobs and whatnot. And I think what I would leave people with is to say that, you know, I don't think AI is going to replace people or people's jobs. I think people who know AI and can work alongside AI are going to replace those that cannot. And I think that's a key thing we need to keep in mind as we, you know, explore this new frontier.
Interesting, and a really pertinent point, I think, on which to end. So pretty much that wraps up today's webinar. I really hope you found it as illuminating as I have. I want to say a huge thank you to our fabulous panelists, Cas, Alex, Ling, Usman, and Bret, for your insight and your expertise. Many thanks once more to Deltek for making this webinar possible. Thanks to you, our audience, for joining today. A recording of the session will be available soon. Please visit the AJ website to find out more, and have a great rest of your day.